Hey loves, welcome back to my channel. My name is Uche. On this channel, I post sewing tutorials and DIYs. So today you'll be learning how to make this beautiful dress you're seeing right now. But before we proceed, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please go ahead and do so. Let's get right into this video. So I'm going ahead to draw out my shoulder line, and I'll mark out my shoulder measurement divided by 2 on that line. I'll also come in by 3.5 inches for my neck width. I'll come down by 1 inch my shoulder slope. I'll go ahead to connect it to my neckline. I'll be coming down my 1.5 inches for my neck depth. I'll also go ahead to connect the two points together. I'll mark out my chest line. I'll connect the points together. You can see me doing like this. I'll also go ahead to roll it across. Placing my tape on my shoulder line, I'll mark out my underbust line and my waistline. I'll go ahead to connect them across. I'll divide my shoulder to chest line and I'll mark out the midpoint. For that point, I'll come inward by 1/2 inch. I'll divide my round bust circumference by 4. I'll place the measurement on my chest line. I'll go ahead to curve out my armhole. I went ahead to label all points. I'll divide my underbust circumference by 4. I'll mark it on that underbust line. I'll also divide my waist circumference by 4. I'll mark it on that waistline. I'll go ahead to connect the lines together. After that, I'll cut out. For the down part of this gown, I've gone ahead to roll out my starting line, which will also serve as my waistline. I'll place my tape on that waistline. I'll mark out my hip line. I'll roll it across. I'll place my tape on that waistline as well. I'll mark out my new length. It's 17 inches. So to mark out my gown length, I'll minus my half length. I'll place it on that waistline and I'll measure it out to check if it will be enough. As you can see, what I have there is 51 inches and that is not up to my gown length. So I'll be adding it up when I'm cutting on my actual fabrics. So let's proceed to divide our body measurement. I went ahead to label the lines. So on my waistline, I'll divide my waist measurement by 4 and I'll put it there. I'll add 1.5 inches for sewing allowance. On my hip line, I'll divide my hip circumference by 4. I'll mark it on my hip line. I'll also add 1.5 inches to it for my stitching allowance as well. I will minus 1.5 inches from whatever I got on my hip line. I will mark it out on my knee length. I will go ahead to connect the points together. You can see me doing like this. I went ahead to blend it. So to get the wideness of my A line on the hem of the dress, I will impute my round hip measurement divided by 4. I'll add 7 inches to that. So I'll go ahead to connect it with my ruler. I'll be using it to cut both the front and the back part of the skirt. I also went ahead to add half of an inch for my stitching allowance. And I'll connect it to meet up to that stitching allowance I marked out. I'll go ahead to trim this out. I'm making use of a flower crepe and I have 3 layers of it. So to cut out the back on my fabric, I went ahead to reduce half inch on the zipper allowance area and I went up by 5 inches to eliminate zipper bulge, and I'll go ahead to connect it. I'll cut it out. I'm gonna ahead to fold my material into two and I'll place the back pattern on it. I'll go ahead to pin it. I make sure I left about 1 inch for my zipper allowance at the back. On that waistline where I removed half inch, I'll go ahead to mark out 1 inch there as well. Remember we didn't add stitching allowance when we are drafting this upper bodice. So I'll go ahead to add 2 inches for my sewing allowance. I went ahead to connect it. On the down part, I'll also add half inch for joining allowance. On the armhole, I'll add half inch. On the shoulder, I'll also go ahead to add half inch. And also on the neck area. After that, I'll proceed to cut it out. I'll go ahead to slit that zipper allowance area open. To cut out the upper bodice, I extended that chest line. As you can see me, I went ahead to slit it open, leaving about 1/4 inch. My fabric is folded into two. I'll place my pattern on it and I'll go ahead to arrange it properly. After arranging it, I will raise that upper part up by 7 inches. Note that anything higher than 7 inches will show your cleavage. I went ahead to pin it down. I'll mark out my spoon allowance 2 inches for the side, half of an inch on the down part, half of an inch on the shoulder and also on the armhole. I'll extend that neckline to meet the front of my fabric like so. I'll proceed to cut this out right now. I'm gonna have to cut it out. For my facing, I folded my fabric into two. I'm cutting a short facing for this. I will fold my main fabric into two and I'll arrange it very well. I'll go ahead and trim out the excess. After cutting it, I'll go ahead to set it aside. So for the skirt part of this gown, I folded my fabric into two. I also went ahead to place the pattern on top of the material. I'm going ahead to pin it. After pinning it, I'll go ahead to complete the length of my skirt. So the total length of my gown is 58 inches, and what I had on the pattern was 51. So I'm going ahead to extend it to 7 inches in order to complete my skirt length. So I'll go ahead to connect the 7 inches I marked. I'll connect it to meet the pattern. I'll go ahead to cut it out. After cutting it out, I'll remove my pattern paper. So I folded my fabric into two. I went ahead to place my front part on it. I made sure I left 1 inch on that back part, and I'm going ahead to cut it out, as you can see. I also cut the down part. After that, I will go ahead to slit the zipper allowance area open. And I'll remove my front pattern. Remember we minus half inch on the back upper part of this dress. So I'm also going ahead to minus half inch on the down part on the waist area as well, in order for them to align, and also it will give it a better shape at the back. I'll go ahead to trim it off as well, just like I did for the upper part. For the upper part of this dress, I laid the facing, right side facing right side. And I'll move to my sewing machine. I will stitch it by half inch. And for the back, I cut out this bias strip, and I'll use it to pipe my neckline. I'll place it like so. After running the first stitch, I'll turn it to the back, and I'll fold it in and sew it. I'm gonna have to sew my upper bodice. As you can see, I also joined the facing and the main fabric together. As you can see, I also went ahead to iron it. Everything is looking so neat right now. So for the back, I also went ahead to pipe my neckline. Now go ahead to join them on the shoulder area. I will face the shoulder right side facing right side. And I went ahead to pin it. After pinning it, I will head to my sewing machine. I will stitch it by half inch. And I'll do the same thing for the other side. So after joining it on the shoulder, I'll be joining the down part of the and to the upper part. I'll go ahead to arrange it. After aligning them on the waist area, I pin it together. I'll also head to my sewing machine and I will stitch it by half inches. And for the back part as well, I'll align it on the waist area as well. After aligning it, I'll also flip it right side facing right side. I'll head over to my sewing machine. I will stitch it by half inches. I'm going ahead to do that. As you can see, I'm going ahead to stitch it, and I also went ahead to iron it. I did the same for the front and back. So I'll go ahead to close my zipper area. I'll flip one side of the back on top of the other. I will arrange it properly. I will head over to my sewing machine. I'll do that. So also for the sides, I also aligned the front and the back pattern together. You can see. I'll go ahead to arrange it properly. I went ahead to pin one side of it. At this point, remember to use the sewing allowance you added on your fabrics or on your pattern paper to stitch it by the side. I added 1.5 inches for mine, and I'll go ahead to do it and I'll be back. Welcome back, guys. I'm gonna need to do it on that new area. I will notch that point so that it can be able to relax after ironing it. I'll also go ahead to notch the other side of it. After notching it, I will turn it to the right side and I'll also go ahead to iron it. After I've ironed it, I'll go ahead to install my zipper as well. So for the sleeve, I came down to 4 inches. And at that point, where I came down by 4 inches, I will impute my round armhole measurement divided by 2. I'll also go ahead to curve my sleeve cap. So whichever way you know how to do yours, go ahead and do it. After doing it, I will take my sleeve length. For this, I want to make use of 21 inches. So I don't want it to be very long. So I will stick by 21 inches. What I measured for my round arm measurement, I will impute it on the hem of my sleeve. And I'll go ahead to connect it to my armhole. After that, I will cut it out. I'll also fold my fabric to cut the other sleeve as well. After arranging it, I'll also proceed to cut it out. I'll flip my sleeve to the wrong side. On the hem, I will fold it by 3/4 of an inch twice and I'll move to my sewing machine and sew it down. This is where I will be inserting my elastic. I'll go ahead to join my sleeve to my gown. So guys, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe, like, share, and this brings us to the end of this video. Thank you for watching, guys. See you on my next video. Bye.